everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Longley's Line Podcast. I am your host, Stephen Longley. Remember to like, follow, subscribe on all of our social media. Stephen Longley for me, Longley's Line for the show, and Lightstyle Studio for our studio here. As you all know, we tend to bring in different guests from all around the entertainment industry, and today is no different. Today I have Mr. Ty Glowniak.
How's it going, Steve?
How you doing? Thanks for being here. Before we get rolling, go ahead and promote all your social medias, wherever anybody can find you, whatever you'd like to promote.
I'm mostly Instagram-based, so you can get me at ty.glowniak at instagram.com.
At Instagram, perfect.
At Instagram.
www.
Yeah, I'm still in that era.
Yeah. I know where you still have to say it, and we remember the World Wide Web.
Wow.
Kids don't know. Anyway, so Ty, one of the first things I like to ask is, where are you from originally?
From Reno. Moved around the West Coast a little and then came back to Reno.
Where'd you go to high school at? Just kind of...
Reed High School.
Reed High School?
Yeah.
Perfect. And when you were younger, what did you want to do for a living? Like, did you have an idea when you were a kid that you kind of wanted to do something?
First thing I wanted to do was be a Power Ranger.
Well, yeah.
But after that was I wanted to be a martial arts instructor.
Martial art, what kind of, like a little bit of everything or one thing specific?
Well, so it started with kind of just wanting to do any martial arts, and then it grew into Kung Fu, and that's where I really excelled at. That's my main art. And, watching Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Jet Li growing up, it was like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah. All of the fun stuff, and it's, like you get some Jackie Chan in there, you really can't go wrong with Jackie Chan. So when you're going through high school, do you start to pursue that in any way? Do you kind of play sports to like stay physically active or anything like that, or was it kind of something that happened later on down the line?
So I actually started with martial arts. I started training in martial arts when I was about 7 years old. Started learning at home. My dad started teaching me.
Yeah.
And then went into Taekwondo. And once I started Taekwondo, I also started football and wrestling, and then I did that all the way up through high school. So.
And then wrestling's always good for the martial arts aspect.
Oh yeah, one of the hardest sports I've ever done. It's you're always at 100%. There's no. You don't get a break. There's no rest time to walk or anything like that.
You're one-on-one the whole time until you're done.
Yeah, till you win or you lose.
I did that too when I was in high school. I played defensive line in football, and my defensive line coach was also the wrestling coach. So he constantly pushed all the big fellas. He was like, get into wrestling, do it. I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And one of my favorite experiences from that was I beat everybody that was kind of on the same level that, just kind of went into it to do it. But the guys, that have done this since they were 2, like just coming in and they manhandle you and you're like, please stop. But I remember I can't remember who we were going against, but I wrestled a fella named Stephen Long. So it was Stephen Longley against Stephen Long.
Did you win for the ultimate Stephen?
I did.
Nice. Good for you.
He was ashamed, had to change his name to Stephen with a PH. It's a whole thing.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a fair bet.
Yeah, we signed a contract and everything. It had to be done. So you get out of high school. What was your next steps? What did you do afterwards?
So I got out of high school and, so my third year of high school, I went to online schooling, and I was more of like outside doing parkour and doing free running, all of that stuff on top of everything. And so finished up high school, and I was trying to start a parkour team here in Reno, and we had gotten invites. We had sent tapes into Ninja Warrior. We had done a bunch of that stuff, but back then you had to be 21 or older because it was you had to fly out to Japan, and we were 16, 17, 18. But stuck with martial arts, took a break for a while, came back strong, and helped my coach, who I started training with when I was 15, open up a school. And so we opened up a gym and started branding everything because he had fallen off and we like reconnected after about 3 years.
Okay. And then what was kind of your part in it? Like how you were talking to teacher?
Yeah, so I was an assistant instructor to him, and so I was pretty much running the kids' class, things like that. And then on top of that, we were doing tournaments, and I was helping out with demo teams and all that stuff. So
Okay.
we would bounce around, do ballets. So we were in a studio with Ballet Nevada, and
Okay.
we were Silver State Warriors. And so they would put on shows, and we would do like intermission things. We would perform, on stage. And
Oh, that's cool.
So help with all that.
Was it kind of like a big choreographed
Yeah.
thing?
So it was a lot of like forms, fight scenes, things like that. And as I got into that, I was like, oh, I've already choreographed fight scenes and all this. And so I wanted to get into like stunt work, stuff like that.
So while the school's going on and you kind of realize you have a little taste for the stunt work bug, did you feel the need to pursue it further, or what did you kind of do while it was in the back of your mind?
So from there, one of the guys we had worked with on a show asked me to go and perform with his cirque. So then I got into cirque performing with him, and that was like Cirque Vagabond at the time, but now it's Asylum Sideshow. Shout out, guys. But we still do shows together, and I started traveling around with him. We went out to LA and we did I think it was a cultural festival or something like that.
Okay.
And so I got into more acrobatics and martial arts danger acts.
What does a danger act entail?
So it started off, everyone loves the bullwhip, it's a very big crowd drawer. And it went to now I'm, whipping balloons out of our showgirls' mouths, and they hold them up and I crack them with the whip. And then he comes to me with an idea one day, and he's like, so I kind of want to start catching arrows. And so I'm like, all right, shoot an arrow at me. Let's see if we can do this. And so I was just like, yeah, let's go for it. And he pulls out like the foam ones, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. And so we started practicing, and so one of our acts is one of us will catch arrows and the other one will shoot at them.
And what was the training like for that, where he has to bring it up and it was like, hey, catch. Okay, let's get started on shooting arrows.
So at first it looks like when you see it from the side starting out, because we would start at say like a quarter draw and work our way up to a full draw. So the quarter draw, you see it lobbing and you're like, oh, this is going to be easy. And then it's coming at you, and it's like, it's not as easy as you think. And then you get up to like 50% where you're using 25-pound compound bows. So at a full draw, that thing's cooking.
Yeah, that thing will fly.
And we're catching it from maybe 10, 15 feet away. So pretty close range. And you have, when we do it on stage, we do it without the foam tips. We'll do a couple foam tip warm-ups, and we'll take the tips off, and then it'll just be a tipless arrow. And even if you get hit, even though there's no point on it, if you get hit with one of those things, it hurts a lot.
It's much like a beanbag gun or something. It's like, it's just beanbags. Have you ever seen one of those things come flying at you? It hurts.
Yes.
It doesn't feel good. And when you're catching them, is it like a straight on shot, or is it kind of to the side?
So I prefer it to go straight to my chest, so like right at my heart, because if I'm in a stance, my right hand's my fastest, and so snatching it from there is
okay.
where I
you
like
feel
to
more
be.
comfortable
Yeah, and then I
because
can move my shoulder as I move it, so I can throw my body into catching it. And that's just where I like it. He likes it a little higher. I mean, he's taller than me too, so his arms have longer reach. So it's just you play with it, and it's never going to go exactly where you want, especially when you're shooting in the dark and it's under strobe lights, and then you have an arrow coming at you.
You have the music going on and everything, and it's intense, and you're like, okay, here we go.
Here we go.
What other acts did you have while you were doing that? The arrow catching, the bullwhip, what other kind of stuff were you performing?
So I would do a lot of forms, and so I would do like hand forms, I would do drunken style, I would do broadsword, and then I would kind of create my own kind of contemporary forms to go with whatever music they were playing, because they also are a live band.
Okay.
So they're playing the music while people are doing the acts. And so I'd choreograph my own forms mixed in with my traditional Shaolin forms.
Gotcha. Okay. So forgive me for not really knowing everything about the martial arts, but so with the forms, what makes it? I would imagine it's kind of a general question, but what makes it different when you incorporate those together? If that makes any sense, where you're doing the contemporary and the other ones that you're saying, like what?
So the contemporary are more flashy, and you
Okay.
put your own flair on them. Whereas traditional forms are the forms that have been passed down from generation to generation and are the standardized, like, these are the forms you test on, these are level 1 forms, these are level 2 forms, so on and so forth.
Okay,
So-
kind of like with wrestling, where you have a takedown. The form is, like you're shooting a one leg, a two leg, stuff like that, where there's specifics going into it.
Yeah. So the
Yes.
forms are
So-
a series of different techniques. So that would be like the techniques you put in the form would be like a double leg, a hip throw, a single leg, ankle pick, any of those.
Right.
Those would be like the techniques. And now if you did those, like say you went into an ankle pick and you were doing this with nobody around you, so you do an ankle pick and then you do the movement for a hip throw, and then you do the shoot for a double leg, and you do those in a series, that would be the form. So it's a series of techniques.
Okay, gotcha. Much like in another comparison, where it's like they do with boxing, where it's like, a jab, uppercut, then you kind of go into the rhythms of it so you can get the rhythms down.
Yeah. And then
So that's what makes the like choreography work.
yes,
In a sense.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then while you're doing that, are you at what? So you're performing in LA. You were saying for that.
We did one show out in LA. We performed locally here in Reno and
For
then
the
in Carson
LA.
as well.
Okay.
No, for the Cirque, we're actually locally based they're based out of Carson, but we do shows in Reno. We've done
Gotcha.
UNR basketball games, all that.
Oh, nice. Like during halftime.
Yeah.
That's
we've done
cool.
we've done halftime shows.
Did you have any? As a way to put this, did you have any big time experiences while it was happening? Like you're performing in front of a live crowd. Was there ever something, I don't want to say went wrong or anything like that, but did you have anything that stands out while you were performing? So good or bad?
Yeah. So probably one of my most prominent ones that stood out is we were doing a performance out at in Carson at, I think it's called Swish Boom or something like that.
Shush boom? Something
Oh
like that?
no, that's in Reno.
Yeah.
It's one of the ones out in Carson, but there was this move where I do a flip over my contortionist,
Okay.
and so she was doing a handstand and a full split, and like she was like doing this. She had this real creepy act, and then I came in out of nowhere and I did a flip over her, but I landed wrong and slammed my hand into the ground, broke my wrist actually.
No.
And so I still finished the show out. So I was, the show must go on.
Uh-huh.
And so I did another entire performance with a jacked up wrist. And it was definitely something.
Did you tape it up right after, or was it kind of just, well, you gotta?
It was just, I had to keep going. So it was just clinch and, hope for the best.
Hope it doesn't give out on you.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just wasn't really going hard with that hand, so I kind of
Yeah.
altered my movements and stuff to baby it.
right. Did you give the wave goodbye? I was like, bye. Oh, shit. Not that one. This one.
It was only a small break, so it wasn't like
Okay.
hanging everywhere. But
Where you see the bone. Kind
yeah,
of
had
poking
had
up
to get a
little bit.
cast and all that.
That's rough. But that sounds like you kind of had a knack for performance and being like the live performances. When you were saying you wanted to do a little bit more stunt work, did you go full head on into trying to do some stunt work, or was it, how did you kind of land into doing a little bit of that?
So it kind of just went from Cirque, and then around when I was 19 or 20, I had heard about this convention going on, and it was like an audition. It was my first audition ever. Had no acting experience. Knew I wanted to act and be a stuntman and
Right.
do all that. So one of my friends were like, "Hey, let's go do this," and he gave me like 2 days. I'm like, "Well, what is it?" So he tells me, "Oh, it's like a Disney Channel audition for where they like try and find talent,
Okay.
And so I go in thinking it's that, and it was actually a convention for an acting school that would put you and send you to LA to perform in front of talent agents from all over the country. But so I just went in there and we practiced the night before, and I'm like, okay, so I have to do a commercial and a monologue.
Yes.
And so I go in and completely, absolutely botch my commercial right off the bat, just fumbling over my. There's like 1,500 people here, and we're all in different lines, just going up to things.
I've been to these. I know. They go.
And so I was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to start again. Absolutely killed it, and nailed my monologue. And the guy who was casting me was the guy who originally casted the first Red Ranger. So
Really?
it was kind of serendipitous of like, oh, this is like where I want to start, and it's what I wanted to be. And he casted the
guiding light right
there. And so out of the 1,500 people or however many were there, he called me back that night, and he was like, "You were my 7th pick. So we want to let you know, like, you made it into the school."
That's great.
And so I went, did that, and fell in love with it, man. Like, just getting up there and doing cold reads, all of that. It was just something clicked, and I was like, this is amazing, you know? This is what I want to do.
Fully got bit by the acting bug.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember what your monologues were from, or did they provide them for you?
For that one, they provided them. So, but at the end of the school, we had to do it in front of 4 talent agencies, and you could pick whatever you wanted. And so my monologue was from Hitch.
Okay.
And it was, you know, when he's giving him the pep talk. And I actually wrote my own commercial.
Oh, there you go.
So I just couldn't find one I liked that like had what I wanted, and I did a Rue 21 Intense Cologne. So I wrote out this commercial for it, and just I added in, you know, my acrobatics and my martial arts into the commercial to kind of show like this is what I bring to the table.
Yeah.
And they loved it.
That's great.
The only problem was I did the commercial first before the monologue.
Yeah, you showed them your hand
Yeah.
before you needed to play.
Super high intensity,
Yeah.
out of breath, and then they're like, "Okay, let's hear your monologue." And I'm like, "Hang on a second."
You got it. My monologue is guy relaxing on couch.
That would have been smart. I should have just played a guy knocked out on a couch.
This is Buddy. I just came back from a 10-mile run. I've been through those before, too, where you have those commercials and monologues and you just have to know them and you want to perform, but it's just a cattle call the entire time it's going through. So while you get accepted to the school, what do they start sending you on auditions? Do you go to acting classes? What was kind of your experience at the school?
So after the school, if you got callbacks from one of the 4 agencies, at least one, then you got an opportunity to go to the IPOP convention out in LA, and then that's where there was like, you know, hundreds of agents, and it was a big competition. Unfortunately, at the time, I was like, you know, couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, but I did get callbacks from 3 of the 4 agents, and so signed up with them, and they would send me emails about, you know, oh, we're having auditions. So when I had gone out to one in LA for an audition, and then they were like, oh, we totally forgot about that you were coming in, and we already filled the spot. Sorry, we didn't email you and reach out and all this. And so I was like, oh, like I'm already in LA.
Yeah,
I'm here for 3 days. And I reached out to the guy who signed me at the convention, and I was like, hey, I'm in LA. Things fell through with my talent agency. Is there any, like, do you know of any agencies here while I'm in the area that you think you could hook me up with? Like, I would really appreciate it. And he was like, Ty, he's like, oh, I remember you. He was like, you were one of my favorites. So he actually hooked me up with an agency while I was out there.
Nice.
So I went in and I auditioned for them, and I did the same thing. And they had only one person in town, auditioned for him. He was like, I love you. I want to sign you, but I have 4 partners. Can you stay here for 3 more days and wait for them to come back? And at the time, my girlfriend at the time, was with her and her 2-year-old son. And I'm like, I can't just like, you know, pay for a hotel for 3 more days. I was like, if it was just me, I'll sleep on the beach and show up here. You know?
I'll be in my.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
But when you have a kid with you, you know, it's a little harder to really pursue. So went back home, all kicking myself, just like, oh, you're so close every time, and you're just right there, right out of reach. And I fell off of it for a while. I just went back to training and ended up getting into cage fighting.
Okay. Just like local events or
Yeah.
just more training for it?
Well, so I was doing like smokers and small things like that, which are just
Okay.
kind of like local. You go to different schools and you fight their fighters and their teachers and stuff like that. And so I was bouncing around doing that. I was doing tournaments for that would qualify you for the international grand championships and stuff like that. And,
Yeah.
so just doing whatever I can to stay in the game,
Right.
And then my teacher was like, hey, because we had started doing kickboxing besides Kung Fu. And so he's like, hey, like, he's like, do you want to fight? And I was like, I'm not really like into MMA. Like, I was like, I like Kung Fu. I like more fluid stuff. And, it's really like frowned upon in the cage fighting world. They're like, oh, Kung Fu doesn't work.
Yeah. Even though it's mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, they all have their three bases. They have their Muay Thai, Taekwondo, wrestling, BJJ,
Yeah.
which I've trained in, Muay Thai, Taekwondo. Got offered to go train in Korea with the Grand Master for
Really?
Taekwondo when I was 18.
Wow.
That was a fun one. He came down. I was going to Washoe High at the time, and our school was our PE class was a Taekwondo class.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I'm an orange belt. Like I trained when I was a kid, but I'm stuck with martial arts. But I'll start at white belt just because I'm starting at a new. You guys do Olympic style Taekwondo, whereas I did freestyle more. And our final was the Grandmaster had come down from Korea and he would spar with you. And the whole day I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, man, why can't I spar this guy? Like, why isn't this guy like, why aren't I getting a turn with him, And so we have about 5 minutes left in the class and I'm like, I still haven't gotten to like spar with him.
Yeah.
And he kicks everyone off the mats because, there's 20 plus kids there, and they're all doing sparring matches every minute.
Yeah.
And he kicks everyone off the mat. And then he calls me out. He says, Ty, come up here. And I'm like, oh, no.
Just shit, it's time.
Yeah. So everyone else he would do while everyone else was sparring. But apparently he had asked my teacher, who's your highest level martial artist? And my teacher told him me. And so I sparred with him. And this guy was, I think, 65 at the time.
Okay.
So fast. He instantly put me back on my heels and did an axe kick, held it in a full split above my head, and then dropped it. And he had enough time, and I ended up catching it. Like I dropped down into an X block and caught his foot, And he kind of like nodded, like you saw it coming. I was like, you held it there for so long, like.
Just I knew like you had enough time to go, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have that, oh moment.
That record scratch. Look at the camera, dude.
Exactly.
It happened.
But yeah, he told my teacher after I sparred him, because then I was like, okay, you want to get fancy? Let's get fancy. So
Yeah,
I started
let's do
doing, all my higher level kicks, higher than, my orange belt stuff. And he starts smiling. He's like, okay, so he starts getting into it, and we're just back and forth. And I was actually like putting him on his heels a little bit.
Yeah.
And so at the end, we bowed to each other, and he was like, oh, started talking. But he had told my teacher after I left, he was like, hey, I want you to train him up, get him to black belt, send him over to Korea so I can train him for the Junior Olympics team. And then I want him to fight for us.
Wow.
And, it's one of those moments in life where you're like, I'm happy with the choice I made, but my life could be a totally different thing.
Think about that, yeah.
Because I thanked him for the offer, told him I was honored, and, it was a huge opportunity, but my heart was in Shaolin Kung Fu.
Right.
I was still training that. It was the art I loved. I was helping my teacher at the time, run all the classes. And it was just, it's where my heart was. Right. And I didn't want to betray that.
Yeah.
And so I turned down the offer and continued training with where I wanted to train.
Still, to have that, it's like having that random contact in your phone where it's like, I remember when I got to talk with this guy or actually interact with this person. That's still cool. And is he still around? Is he still doing?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't heard from them since after that, pretty much.
Yeah, that's really cool though. One of the top guys out there wants you to come and train with them.
I think he was the like fourth grandmaster in the world. So
Wow.
he had only 3 people above him. Mm-hmm. He was amazing. He was so good. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, where you get to train with the best.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
That's what you always want to do. You know, you always want to find the guy who's better than you in the room and learn as much as you can. Always
Yeah.
be a student.
Yeah, you want to have them give you that little bit of a humbling while also continuing to compete
Yes.
as you're doing it. That's really cool. And as you're going through it, so you had to come back, couldn't do the whole thing for the casting agents down there. Did you continue to pursue it here after you took a little bit of a break? Well, you took a little bit of a break, but what kind of ignited that fire again?
So I was working at I was over at AMBA martial arts studio here in Reno, and that's where I met Nick Volantini.
Yeah. He's been on the show.
Yes.
Take a listen.
Shout out, man. And he was really big into it. You know, he was in the acting scene, and so he kind of like just grabbed me by the shirt and was like, "Come on, let's do this."
Yeah.
And so I'm just recently like getting back into acting and stunt work, and now it's just rolling.
Yeah. Now you're starting to get a whole feel, and because I know he was briefly talking about a recent film that he was a part of where was it the big production where there was all kinds of different people, or was it, what have you worked with?
So the first one that we did together was Working Stiffs. And that one, he was like, "Hey, do you want to come audition?" I was like, "Sure." So I went and I auditioned. All they wanted was stunt. They didn't, want to see any acting skills. So I just went in and did some stunts. So like, yeah. So we had a stunt team together, and we just came out of this fogging room and just went wild for a minute and a bang. And that was our scene. It was our 15 seconds of fame. And I was like, yeah.
Did what you could. Yeah.
And it's really hard to do for people to do something in, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And after that is when he started throwing the idea of the project we just did together, Escape of the Dragons. And he was like, "Hey, this is something I want to do. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, like, let's do it. Sure."
Yeah.
And that was my first, like, real experience of what goes into everything on set and just actually being in it, having lines, doing the takes, getting the different angles, working with so many different actors and getting to know everybody, and then trying to coordinate with them, because a lot of them were novices or had no experience in stunts or fight sequencing. And so right there on set, a lot of them we had trained for a couple months up ahead. The people who came in, showed up and like did the work, they kind of got the bigger roles. But even to just take a punch or fall right, especially where we shot it, because it was dangerous, like definitely a lot of hazards. And so it's like, okay, you guys got, like, you have to learn how to fall right.
Yeah.
It's not like the whole floor is matted. This is concrete. If you fall wrong, even on something small, you're going to hurt yourself.
It'll hurt. Yeah.
So it was going over how to fall correctly, showing people, different ways to react, how to sell the punch, whether if another punch is coming, don't take the hit and fall to the ground.
Right.
And so it was a lot of work, and it was, out in the snow.
Yep.
But it was definitely a great experience. Like, love the guy for it.
Yeah. With your training, did you know the stunt work aspect ahead of time before you got into that, knowing how to fall right and take punches and things like that? Or was it kind of a learning on the job situation?
So that's always been a part of my training. Falling right is a huge part of martial arts and parkour. Parkour is, you got to know how to fall right. When you're jumping off a 2-story building or, whatever you're doing.
Something slips.
You got to fall right.
Yeah. So that just came with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you're getting a feel for the stunt work and seeing actually behind the scenes, because a lot of times when people see movies, the stunt person always goes under the radar, which is something that now a lot of people are trying to make it so these award shows where, you know, the best actor or the, you know, best director or somebody gets awards, but the stunt people that actually made them look really good fall under the radar. So now that's starting to be a bigger thing, and you get to see it firsthand how it goes into it. What made you want to? Was there something that you saw where you was like, okay, we can make this bigger and better? Was there something that you did where you were like, let's keep this going, you know?
So probably the free running scene in that was like, we played around with it, and then, you know, our cinematographer, Andrew, he was like, can you do this? And I was like, yeah, I could do that. He was like, okay, I think that'll look good. And so he kind of like starts giving us ideas on what he kind of thinks will look good. And I'm like, all right, if we do this, we can take this bigger. We can take, and this was our like second day of shooting. And so mind you, on set, I had gotten a concussion during one of the fight scenes. Because there was one where I throw a guy into a couple other guys, and his knee came up and just caught me right on the button and almost dropped me. And so I'm dizzy and I'm like stumbling right after that scene, and he's like, okay, let's go again. I was like, hang on, I need a minute. And I walked outside and instantly got nauseous and just vomited. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I'm dizzy. I have a massive headache. The show must go on. So I get back in there and I'm like, all right, let's go. So we keep shooting.
Twist your wrist a little bit. I know how to keep the show.
Yeah, exactly. But no, once we got into it, it was like I couldn't stop. Like,
sure, yeah.
Yeah, once we started shooting a scene, I was like, ooh, I could do this better. Ooh, I could do this better. Oh, hey, what if you did this? And then so I just kind of went into teacher mode, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to show you how to do this and this and this. And, you know, I don't know if it's a flaw, but it's just once I get started and like on that trend of like, all right, let me show you this. Oh, hey, you can do it from here. Yeah. Okay, this is the first level. This is the second level. You know, let's see where we can go. And then, so, you know, trying to do that with every single one of my actors is.
I get that from the actor's standpoint. Would you like a little bit more?
Sure.
So with the, like, from the actor's standpoint, I get it completely too. When it comes to doing a certain scene, when you're reading the lines or you're saying the lines and you have them in your head, and the director wants to, you know, maybe do the scene a little differently or add X, Y, and Z to the scene, you take that and you keep going. But then there's also that part in your head where you just go, okay, they gave me this direction, but I also want to add a little bit of this to it. I want to take this character and add a little bit extra to it. I want to keep going. And it's the like acting bug that really keeps it going for you. And I know it the same way, except most of the time with mine, I have to cry or just say my lines better, you know, which is a whole different form. But when you were saying the concussion, it brought me back to a football day where my helmet that I had on was just a little too big. So we're doing a hitting drill, and as we do the drill, I collide with the guy, and my helmet is right here, and it slides down and slams my nose, gives a little crack, and I'm just gushing.
Yeah.
But nobody sees it but the guy I'm hitting against, and all the coaches go, you stopped moving your feet, go again. Okay. So we do it again, and I keep moving my feet, but as soon as my feet keep moving, the helmet slams down once again.
Oh, no.
And I get off the field, and I take my helmet off, and I'm just gushing. They're like, all right, let's do the... You okay? I'm fine. Give me 5. I don't want to lose my starting spot.
Just need a minute.
Yeah.
I'll get back out there, coach.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll be there in a moment.
Oh, yeah.
Just as I got to wipe all the blood off my face. Did you have any... So you had the wrist, you had the concussion. Did you have any other kind of crazy injuries while you've been performing?
Oh, man. So many.
A little too many.
Yeah, I'm all beat up. I was working on one of my worst ones was I was training for what we call tongzagong.
Okay.
And we were working on it for a demonstration. And it means children's skills or virgin skills. So it's flexibility, learning how to hit the ground, things like that.
Form new.
Yeah. And so I went to do you do a front flip and you land on just your shoulder blades and your feet. So the rest of your body doesn't touch the ground.
Okay.
And I had been training to do a front flip to my feet, like to standing for so long that I was like, okay, I have to untuck.
Right.
So I untucked directly vertical, landed straight on my head, cracked my neck, thought I was paralyzed. I couldn't move any part of my body for about 5 minutes.
Oh.
And so I just like opened my eyes all dizzy. My coaches are standing over me and they're like, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? And I can't respond. I couldn't talk. I could only move my eyes. And I'm like, oh, if I'm completely paralyzed, like this is it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want it.
Yeah.
And like slowly I started to like regain feeling, you know, that Bill scene where she's like, wiggle your big toe. That's all I could think. Mm-hmm. So I'm just like, wiggle your toe, wiggle a finger, move something. And then finally, like I start like getting feeling back and I start moving. And they're like, don't move. Like, don't move yourself, you know. And they help me up. Okay. They give me the Chinese oils on my neck. And they're like, all right, if, you know, it's crazy bad in the morning, go to the hospital, get it checked out. Never did that. But for about 2 weeks, I was like moving, you know, couldn't turn my neck at all. So
sorry while you're driving, just sorry guys, if I'm turning left, you better be ready.
Exactly.
Man, that's terrifying.
Yeah, that one was probably my worst one from martial arts.
Right. Yeah. I could see why that would be on the top of the list. Yep. So you got Enter the Dragon under your belt. Excuse me. What do you have coming up next? Did you do anything after Enter the Dragon? Are you currently working on something? Kind of what was after that?
So we did some stunt work and stunt coordinating for If Tomorrow Never Comes, which is a feature film that's still in the works. Mm-hmm. That was another one. They just, you know, called me up and they're like, hey, you want to come and do some stunts? And I was like, of course.
Sure.
Let's go. And that one was really fun because it was Nick and I got to collaborate and choreograph, you know, there's about 6 of us doing stunt work for one fight scene in a super confined area we started working, you know, started playing, bouncing ideas off each other, kind of feeling out what the main character wanted to do.
Right.
And what he had a feel for, and then working with the stunt team. We had guys on the stunt team that had never done stunts before, and so we're like, all right, like, let's just go with it. And it turned out really good. I thought it came out, like, great. And it actually turned into a scene. I asked the director, I was like, hey, you know, we're sitting here, we're doing this. It's kind of weird if there's like nothing going on. I was like, are you okay if we throw some lines in here or if we kind of like just improv it? Yeah. Just to kind of fill the empty space before everything.
Yeah, make it so it's not just B-roll somewhere.
Yeah. And so he was like, yeah, go for it, Ty. Like, get it. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, we'll just throw it in. Yeah, it gave me a little bit of freedom, which I thought was really cool, you know?
Yeah, because a lot of the times that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
They want to stay on script and what they have in mind.
Yeah.
And then, so now you've got that coming. What's next for you? What do you have working on now?
I don't know, actually. So my next goal is to get into some acting classes and actually start doing some classes, kind of dive deeper in the world, start just actually charging at it, you know, not waiting for things to fall into my lap, like going out and getting them.
Right. So do you have, what sort of aspirations come with that? So you want to go into the acting. Do you have an idea where you want to be, you know, like the Bruce Lee type where you star in your own feature film or do something? Or is it kind of want to do a little something and see where it goes?
I want to start off doing a little something. The end goal is, you know, get to the Bruce Lee, Tony Jaa, all of them. Get to that level where you're starring, acting
series about yourself, like the Jackie Chan Adventures.
Exactly,
cool like that.
If I had an anime after me, that's like the dream.
How cool would that be? That would be awesome. You have books and TV shows. That would be awesome.
Yeah,
I'm on that. Mine is different in the sense where I want to just make it a career, where I'd love to be one of those working actors where the second you turn the TV on and you've seen somebody in a movie and then you see him on a TV series and you're like, it's that guy. Oh, I love that guy. Let's watch. Let's see what he does. And that's one of my all-time favorites is watching those guys where you see him pop up like Gary Oldman is his own thing in a sense, or like Terry Crews or somebody like that, where you see them and you just
know.
You love seeing them. You're like, oh, this is going to be a great movie.
When you see them like in the cast, you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to go see this movie because you just know it's going to be good.
Yeah, as soon as their name pops up, you're like, yep, I'm going to go see it. That's kind of where my aspirations are as well.
Okay.
But so now, before we do get you out of here, you kind of said you want to dive more into the acting stuff. Have you thought about maybe continuing to do it here in the local scene with like Mad Wives or anybody like that? Or have you thought about maybe seeing if the guy who cast you in LA maybe still wants you in LA or something like that?
I think for now it's going to be local. I might if an opportunity arises,
never say no.
Older now, I have the money, I can actually go and stay there. So it's a little more opportunity. So, but for now, just start auditioning for things here. Now that I've done these projects, I've networked, I've gotten to know people. People now know my name, know I'm here, and I know they're there. And so now I have the ability to reach out and, see what projects are coming up, see when auditions are held. And so it's going to be a little easier to really jump in and actually, I don't even want to always play the stuntman. I would love to be out there and just be acting.
Be the best friend or something.
Anything.
You want to cast me? I'll do it.
Yeah, you can put me on camera and I'll do it.
That's typically what I like to do.
That's how you start,
it's
right?
Oh, if the camera's on me, I'm happy. I just need the camera on. Give me a couple lines, I'll say 'em. I don't mind it, whatever it is. Well, Ty, I want to thank you for coming in and chatting with me a little bit here about your story and getting into everything. Before we let you go ahead and promote your social medias wherever you want anybody to find you, anything like that.
So just Ty.Glowniak or Ty Glowniak and you'll find me on all socials.
All the socials, perfect. Well, Ty, once again, thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Steve, for having me. Here. Cheers.
And you guys know what to do. Like, follow, subscribe. Stephen Longley, Longley's Line,
Support this guy.
Studio. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Cheers.